I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
So, hello, and here we are back with Leaving Earth. We are now starting our first playthrough. This is a blind playthrough. I've watched some playthroughs on YouTube, but I haven't even read the 43, no, actually not even, the 35 or 36 pages of rules. Oh, there's a solitaire. Piece of information. Play through the full 20 years, attempting to earn as many points as you can. Okay, so we are starting out with an easy game. So we have 5 easy missions. And the way this works for the solitaire game is we look at the number of missions we have, the total points, that's 10, 12, 17. We need to get half of those plus 1, so that would be 14 points. To win against, if you like, the AI. Although the AI won't actually be acting, there is no bot, there is nothing. So if we get this one, this one, this one, and this one, we would be done. So we have to do the Mars thing. Because if we only do this stuff, we would only get to 12, but we need to get 14. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, we get money. Now, I saw people and they had paper money. Now, I don't have any paper money. I have these things and I just assume that they are money, which is cool because I've got little coins. So you get 25 units, so 25 million or whatever they are. So we have 25 million units and it's the year 1956. So now what we need to do is we need to think, what do we have to do? Mars survey means we have to go over here, we have to land. And do we survey, does this mean we have to bring something back? Let's just check. Okay, you can do this in one of 2 ways. You either travel to the place, but you don't have to come back, or you do the surveying using the surveying advancement. Now, advancements are the things that I referred to earlier as things that you have researched. So you have re-entry, landing, rendezvous, surveying, iron thrusters, Saturn, rockets, Soyuz, Atlas, Juno, rockets, and life support. So in order to bring somebody up into space, there are a couple of things that we need to do. Mars survey is going to be the biggest one. So for this we would need surveying, and we would need solar radiation, exploration, no landing is required for this one. So let's think about this. If we survey from here, we need to overcome 3, 8, 11, 15, 3, 8, 11, 15 difficulty. 15 difficulty for something that is a probe and has weight 1. So for this we need 15 thrust already. Thrust already, so just to get there. So I think and of course, every single time we move from one place to the other, so we can't just, for example, take a Soyuz, which delivers 80 thrust, has a weight of 9, so 10 times 15 would be 150. So basically it doesn't work like this, because every single time, this is how I read it, every single time you overcome one stage, you do one maneuver. So it's one from one location to another. And of course, moving here is going to take time, namely 2 years. Okay, so let's get started. Let's just start with getting a rocket. And we're going to start with a Juno rocket, and this achievement costs us 10. Well, this is how this works. It's 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, so it costs us 10. So we move 10 to the bank, which means we'll actually move them up here because we get them back at the end of the year anyway. So we get the Juno rockets. Now we need to draw 3 outcome cards. I'm just going to take the yellow ones because it doesn't matter. I have shuffled them several times, but I'm just going to shuffle them one more time. So here we are. We draw 3 cards, 3 outcome cards, 1, 2, 3, and we do not look at them. But we still can't do anything because we don't have any Juno rockets. A Juno rocket costs costs 1. One of the things that we need to do is we need to put a working probe or capsule in Earth orbit. So we're going to buy a So first we're going to buy a probe for 1. Sorry, for 2. And then we're going to buy 5 Juno rockets. No, actually we're going to buy 3 Juno rockets. I'm going to tell you why in a second, because they cost 3 units. And then we're going to build our first spaceship. And this spaceship is not going to contain a probe, but it's going to contain a Juno rocket. Well, actually, we are going to try this. We're going to fire a Juno. We're gonna risk it. Let's just be risky. So we're going to put a probe on our spaceship. So we're going to put the spaceship on Earth because that's where we are. So we have a probe and a Juno rocket. In order to get to suborbital, or okay, we can also go to straight to Earth orbit from here. It takes us 8. Difficulty. To launch the probe would be 8 plus 8 times for the Juno rocket to get this. So we're looking at 16 thrust. So, actually this is going to be interesting because we can't launch it unless, well, okay, here's what we'll do. We will, so that's 12 thrust. We're gonna first launch a single rocket. What are we going to do? So now we're going to launch this and we're going to see what happens. It's a failure. It's a minor failure. On a minor failure, the rocket is damaged, provides no thrust. It's damaged, so we turn it over, but it isn't lost, which is good. And we pay 5 million or 5 units to remove this. So this goes away. And then we're going to do the same thing again. And it's another minor failure, which we're also going to remove. So we're now going to do some post-mortems and this and kind of go, okay, so why did this go wrong? And we're going to be very, very adventurous. We're going to launch the last one, and that's also a minor failure. We can't remove it because we don't have any money, but at least now we know that we do have to experiment on these because the next time we launch one, it would crash again. So these ones are damaged, so they stay with us. This one is also damaged, so we turn them over. Now, that is the end of our turn. What happens is you can do as much as you like on your turn. The only limit is really either you don't have any rockets to launch anymore, or you don't have anything else you would like to do, or you don't have any money anymore, because of course money is important. So now we're at the end of the turn, and at the end of the turn, what happens is sorry, where's the year end? End of year. On Earth, repair all damaged components and heal all incapacitated astronauts by turning them face up. So we actually only damaged these rockets. They're still with us, which is good, so we haven't wasted them. So they're still there. Check to see if astronauts off Earth have survived. There aren't any. Move the calendar marker to the next year. We're doing this. If the next year is off the end of the calendar, the game ends at this time. Remove 1 token from each spacecraft that has any. We don't have that. So we're now going to get our money back. 25 units. I love the fact that these are all like wooden components. I mean, I don't know if I've got a special edition because it's also bigger than the other ones that I saw, which are more like this size boxes. I have no idea. If anybody knows what I'm looking at here and why I've got these ones, just let me know. So, so now what we're going to do is we are going to, first of all, let me see. It's now 1957. The first one would be to have an artificial satellite in Earth orbit. This costs us 8. Difficulty. For the probe, that would be 8 thrust, but of course we also have to have our rockets. So in order to get there, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to launch one more rocket. We know that it's going to be a failure. We're going to put this away and spend 5. So we have 2 rockets left. So we're talking 8 times 1 is thrust 8. We need 1 to get off. That's 16 to get there. And these provide 8 thrust. If we put 4 more, we are looking at, if we have 5 thrust, would be 40. We are going to buy an Atlas rocket. Maybe I shouldn't even have invested in the... Gonna get an Atlas rocket. Maybe I shouldn't have invested in the Juno rockets to begin with. They cost 10. We draw 3 outcomes to research this. So first of all, sorry, I'm not saying that we're buying Atlas rockets. We're actually researching them first. So we're now able to build them. 1 Atlas costs 5. That provides 27 thrust. It weighs 4. No, actually what we're going to do is we're actually going to research Soyuz. So we're going to keep the outcomes because that doesn't really make any difference. Just going to get a Soyuz rocket for 10. We paid for it. We get the 5 back that we paid for the Atlas. And we're going to pay 8 for a Soyuz. And we're going to buy one more probe. So we have a Soyuz rocket for 80 thrust. We're going to have the end of the year, turn it over. We get 25 quid back. And we are going to launch we're going to try this. We're going to put a probe on this Soyuz and we're going to see that's 10 times 8, that's 80, that's just enough to bring it into Earth orbit if nothing happens. So, chances are that this will go wrong. First outcome is actually a success. So that's really good. So we managed to do this, that's lucky. Now I do want to remove this one, so I'm going to pay 10 quid and remove the success. So we have the Soyuz gets destroyed. Well, it doesn't get destroyed, I guess it gets used and then it's discarded. So we just leave it here and put it to the side. And we have managed to put a working probe in Earth orbit. So we have achieved our first goal. So we have 2 points. Put this over here. So the probe is now basically flying around. We could bring it down. It wouldn't cost us anything, but it would get destroyed because we don't have anything that lets us do the re-entry thing. I think maybe we should start surveying. So we're going to get this achievement and pay 10 for it. And it only has one outcome card that we need to use. We can't, I guess we could probably survey Earth from this place to just learn how it works. Let's just do this and see what happens. It's a success, so we can now leave this open because we know it will always be a success. We don't even have to pay to remove it because there is only one card. So that's not too bad. The point is, of course, this probe is now, you know, just circling or orbiting Earth. In order for us to bring it back, we would have to do rendezvous, bring it back in another spaceship. We have 5 more units of money. And we're going to spend because we have to spend them, we're going to spend 3 on an Apollo capsule. No, we're going to spend 4, sorry, on an Apollo capsule. And with 1 left, we're just going to buy a Juno. God knows what it's good for, but we'll just have it because I hate wasting money. Because you won't get it back. You know, there is no way to keep it between years. Everyone else is in good health, so we don't need to do anything at the end of the year. So we go to 1959. Next up would be to do a lunar survey. For this we would need to go to lunar orbit. I suppose, or could you do this with lunar flyby? Oh, this is actually unexplored. When we were doing the surveying, we would have been able to turn this over. Okay. So, yeah. So a lunar flyby should make it possible for us, I believe, to survey it. I don't know. Let's just say you have to be in orbit to survey something. So we would have to get to Earth orbit, which takes us probe and a Soyuz. And then we would need to get the probe into lunar orbit, which has a difficulty of 4. It has a difficulty of 3. And for this, we would need three, a Saturn weighs 20 and has a thrust of 200. a Saturn could take a payload of 5 to this level. Okay, a Saturn could take this probe plus 4 Juno rockets. And a Juno rocket can take a payload of 1/3 to here. So you need 3 Juno rockets to go here. So we need 1 Saturn rocket to get 3 Juno rockets and 1 probe to lunar orbit. So, oh sorry, I get money. So we're going to start working on Saturn rockets, and we pay 10 to do the relevant research. And we draw 3 cards, 3 outcome cards. A Saturn costs us 20, which we can't even afford. We've got 15. So what we're going to do is we're also going to work on re-entry and pay 10 for this and get 3 outcomes. 1, 2, 3. And that leaves us 5. And we're going to just buy 1 Apollo and 1 Juno for this. Like I said, I don't want to not use the money, because otherwise they will say, oh, you didn't use that much money last time, because I know how this works, I know controllers. You didn't use it the last time, so you know what? You're just going to get the run rate, i.e. what you used last time, minus anything you didn't use, minus 10%. Okay, so end of year 1960, nothing is broken, everything comes back. And we are going to buy a Saturn, which costs us 20. And we are going to launch it. And it is a major failure. We remove this for 5. And it means this rocket is completely destroyed, so goes kablooey. End of year 1961. We get our money back. We buy another Saturn rocket for 20 and we launch it. Let's see what happens. It's a failure, a minor failure. 5 to remove the effects, which we're going to do. And it is only damaged. End of year. Everything that's damaged is repaired. Get this back. We launch it one more time into suborbital. And what happens is it's a major failure. We pay 5 to get rid of this. So now going forward, all of these launches will be a success. And we're going to spend 20 to just buy the Saturn rocket. And that's the end of the year, 1963. And now we are ready to put together a spacecraft. We're going to put it here. And we're going to put a Saturn rocket, a probe, and 3 Juno rockets. onto a spaceship. And we are going to launch it. So first we're going to go into suborbital flight, straight into Earth orbit, which requires which has a difficulty of 8, and our total weight is 1, 2, 3, 4, 24 times 8 is exactly 200, isn't it? 80, 160. Did I make a mistake there? A Saturn rocket can take a payload of 5, yeah, so that's fine. So we're fine. The Saturn rocket fires and we make it into Earth orbit. And now we're going to move into lunar orbit, this probe, which is going to cost all of these 3 rockets, these Juno rockets, they also go away. Sorry, you got the money. And we are now going to do a surveying. Surveys are now always a success because we only have 1 card left. So we're going to survey the moon. And the moon is spacecraft destroyed by vast oceans of dust. So if we were to land here, the spacecraft would automatically be destroyed. This is what we now know. So we have done the moon location reveal. So we now have 6 cards, 6 points. We have 25 units. Okay, so we could go into suborbital, which costs us 3 success. 3 success, what am I saying? 3 difficulty. If we had a probe, we would require 3 thrust. Since we have a Juno, that would be 4, 12 thrust. So first we're going to buy a probe. Then we're going to buy a Soyuz. We're going to build a spacecraft that is 10 in total. So we need a thrust of 30, which the Soyuz gives us. Why are we trying to do this? Well, first of all, we're going to test the Soyuz again. If we make it, then we will just leave it here, and at the end of the year it will automatically go down to Earth, which would test re-entry. So let's fire the Soyuz, and it's a minor failure. So the rocket is damaged and provides no thrust. So the probe and the rocket are just damaged. We put this away and pay 5 for it. We're just going to do this again. We're going to launch it again. And it is a minor failure again. We don't have money to remove it, but at least now we know we have to at least do it one more time. These are not destroyed. We have 1 left for which we're going to buy a probe because we can always use them. It's here. It's the next year, 1964. Everything that was destroyed, everything that was damaged can be repaired, so we get our money back. We're going to launch one more Soyuz, which we know will be damaged, so we're going to pay 5 to do the research on this one. The Soyuz comes back, but it's damaged. So what we're now going to do is we're going to build another spaceship, a Soyuz with a probe. We're going to launch it into suborbital flight. It will be an automatic success. Soyuz cannot be salvaged, of course, because it did its thing. So now the probe is dangling here. At the end of this year, it'll automatically come down and we will do a re-entry research on this one. And we're actually going to do 2. We're going to buy another Juno. We're going to build another spaceship with a probe, so we can do this in one go. I wonder, do I have to wait until the end of the year, or can I force this? At the end of your turn. Okay. Oh, you may deliberately perform such a maneuver during your turn if you like. No thrust is required. Okay. So the Junos have been fired off, and they're automatic successes at this stage. So we're going to move this one into re-entry, and let's see what happens on our first re-entry. And it's a success, so it costs us 10 to get rid of this, which we are going to do. But everything's fine, the probe survives. So we still have our probe, which is nice. And then we're going to bring this one down. And we get a failure. We're going to pay 5 to remove this effect. But it also means that our probe was destroyed. Okay. We have 4 more for which we are going to buy an Atlas rocket. Okay, that's the end of the year. 1965 is rolling around. The Soyuz, the damaged one, is back. We are going to launch that probe was destroyed, wasn't it? Because we had a major failure, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Okay. So what we're now going to do is we're going to use our Atlas rocket. And I've been using... why am I buying an Atlas rocket when I don't even have that one researched? So this one goes away. Doesn't matter. We're going to buy... we had 4, didn't we? So we're just going to buy 4 Junos for this one. Sorry, my mistake. 1, 2... I can't buy Atlas rockets because I don't have them researched yet. So we have 4. And we're going to put 3 plus a probe on a spaceship. And it's going to go into suborbital flight. And we're going to recheck the re-entry as it comes down. Bloop. And it is a success. We're not going to remove this because it doesn't really make any difference, because we now know it's going to be a success no matter what. So we are now ready to look at man-to-Earth orbit and back. We have checked re-entry. So what we now need to do is we need to get we need to research landing. Because it's nice to be able to re-enter, but then if you crash, so we're going to get a re-entry for 10. One. And I'm not looking at them. We're going to hire an astronaut. They cost us 5, and we're going to get a... We're going to get Neil Armstrong. We're going to put Neil into an Apollo. They don't weigh anything. Astronauts don't weigh anything. We have a Soyuz rocket. In order to get into Earth orbit, the difficulty is 8. A Soyuz can take... Soyuz isn't strong enough. We will have to get a Saturn rocket. Actually, we're not going to... We are going to get a Saturn rocket. Do we have 20? Yes, we do. We're going to get a Saturn rocket. No. Well, we are going to, but we're not going to test the landing, because the problem is, if we did, and if we failed, we couldn't remove the failure because we have no money left. So, next year's rolling around. Flip the card. It's now 1966. And Kennedy is long dead. We still haven't put a man on the moon, so we're way behind, way behind. So this one is over here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build a rocket with a Saturn. And we have a Saturn can take a payload of 5 through a difficulty of 8. So we're going to put an Apollo in there. Actually, when I tested re-entry, did I go to Earth orbit or did I do suborbital flight? I'm not sure. Because actually, if I did it from suborbital flight, I could not have tested re-entry. Okay. Okay, now that's a problem, because then I would have needed to overcome an 8, would have been 1 Soyuz. But I have Soyuz rockets, and I would have had them tested. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spend the Saturn now, because I think I made a mistake there. And I'm also going to get, I'm not sure actually, I think I'm also going to get rid of the Soyuz just to be on the safe side, and we're going to just have nothing happening this year and we'll get all of the money back. And now we're going to try this. So we're going to get... in order to do the landing, we really just need to go into suborbital, which is a difficulty of 3. And putting a capsule, they weigh 3, and in order to get 3 across 3 is 9. So we would need 3 Junos to pull this off. So we're going to get 3 Junos. We're going to build a spacecraft, put an Apollo on it, and Mr. Neil Armstrong. We know re-entry won't be a problem, so we're going to go up here. Boom. And we're going to force a landing. then we're going to draw the first outcome. And it is a success, which we will remove for 10. We're going to buy 2 more Junos. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to re-enter and try and land. And the outcome is another success for which we're going to pay 10. So far, it's going well. That's the end of the year, 1968. Get our money back. In order to get somebody to Earth orbit, which has a difficulty of 8, we need a Saturn to carry the Apollo capsule. So we're gonna get a Saturn for 20, and we're just gonna run a risk and do it. And then we're going to do the re-entry into Earth orbit. We know this is going to be successful because we've tried it before. And then we're going to land. Now this is going to be interesting because this is our last success or failure. And it's a success. We're really lucky. We will not pay because, well, first of all, we don't have 10, but also we know it's going to be a success. So we have claimed the man in orbit and back. So we're now at 10. We have 5 left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to do the reveal Mars location. We're not going to send a person, we don't have to, so we don't have to do life support. Do we need life support to send? Would we have needed life support actually? Oh no, only if the capsule ends its year in space, which didn't happen, we always brought them straight back. Okay, so that's not important, that was fine. We're not going to send a man into Mars orbit. We're just going to actually go into Mars orbit with a probe. So that is going to take us 1, 2, 3 years. So we first of all need to overcome the 8, and then it's another 5. So it's 13 in total. The probe is 1. So in order to get here, we need to overcome a difficulty of 5. And one atlas could take this probe and overcome a difficulty of 5. and Atlas weighs 4. So together they weigh 5. And in order to overcome difficulty 8, we would need a Saturn for this. So we have 5, which doesn't really help us. Because we can't do anything now with this, and I'm not going to buy stuff at this moment in time because it doesn't really help us. So now next year rolls around. So we're going to get Atlas, research, for 10, and 3 outcome cards. Sorry, that's 4, so we're just going to take the top 3. And we're going to get an Atlas rocket for 5. And another Atlas, well, no, and we're going to launch it. Into suborbital flight, and we'll see what happens. And it's a success. So we're going to pay the 10 to get rid of this success. And it's the end of the year. It comes back. The rocket is gone, though. Obviously because it was launched, and now we're in 1970. This is going to be difficult. I'm going to buy another Atlas rocket. We're going to launch it. And we are successful. 10 to get rid of it. And we are going to buy another one, and we're going to launch it. And that's a success as well. So in this case, we just don't have to do anything because, you know, we will just keep it, and we will buy one more. So we will build one more. And we're going to put together in 1971, what we're going to do is we're going to get 25 million. We're going to buy a Saturn for 15. We're going to build a spaceship. It's going to be a Saturn, an Atlas, and a probe. How is this going to work? Well, this is going to work as follows. The Atlas has a payload of so the Saturn can take a payload of 5 up to difficulty level 8. So the Saturn will launch and will take us into Earth orbit. We have researched Saturn, so we know this is going to work. So now we're sitting in Earth orbit, and now we want to go to Mars orbit. This is a difficulty of 5. The probe has the weight of 1, and an Atlas rocket can take, an Atlas rocket, what am I saying? Actually, this is Soyuz. Why did I buy an Atlas rocket? Soyuz. And yeah, I've got more than enough money to pay for this. So we have the Soyuz. The Soyuz is going to carry this over, because Soyuz for difficulty, now I'm completely mixed up. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Ignore what I just said. We have a difficulty of 5 to overcome. And for a difficulty of 5, a Atlas can carry 1 2/5 of a payload. We have 1, so it's going to move over here into Mars orbit. But that is going to take us 3 time units. So the Atlas has fired. And now we're going to put 3 of these lovely, wonderful, I mean, I'm just so, the tokens, the components are just first class. I'm so happy about this game. It's unbelievable. So we're going to put this on this spaceship. And that is the end of the year. At the end of the year, we're going to remove 1 token. We get our money back. We really just need to wait 2 more rounds. But in the meantime, we could work on putting a man into space. Now, I assume that space means inner planets transfer. So for this, we would first of all have to overcome difficulty 8 to put him into Earth orbit. And he's going to be in the Apollo capsule. Okay, we're discovering solar radiation as we go by. Radiation level 1, roll 1 die per astronaut. Okay, that doesn't really make any difference because there's no astronaut on board. And going into the inner planets transfer is also not really, doesn't really require any radiation problems, so we will be fine. So we're going to put we're going to need a Saturn rocket to pull this off, so we're going to buy one for 20. No, for this we are going to need, yeah. Okay, now it's going to get interesting. We're going to do life support for 10. And get 3 outcome cards, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to put the Apollo capsule on a Saturn. For 15. Then we're going to launch Armstrong into space. No, we can't actually. So rewind that. We're not going to do it, but we will still buy the Saturn because we also need to go into Earth, into the inner planet transfer, which takes us, which means we need another 3 thrust. And to overcome level 3, we would need an Atlas rocket to strap to this thing. So yeah, we're going to buy another Atlas rocket next round. So end year, move 1. We're going to get this money back. We're going to get an Atlas rocket for 5. Saturn will take a payload of so in order to get here, at the end of the day, we have a payload of 3 that needs to overcome this. a payload of 3 can be moved across level 3 by an Atlas rocket. So now we have a payload of 7, which we need to overcome this difficulty level, which is a level 3 again. So we have a payload of 7, and level 3 payload of 7 would require a Soyuz, which we're going to buy. So now our total payload is, we're now in Earth orbit for 16 payload. 16 payload across a difficulty of 5 could be managed by a Saturn rocket. So now our difficulty is, our level, our weight is 36, and we have to overcome a difficulty 3. And for this we need another Saturn, which costs 15, and we don't have enough money, so we only have 10. But that's fine because it's the end of this year, and we can now do a Mars survey. Valuable minerals, sample on Earth 50. We're not going to sample because we don't have the landing gear, we can't land. Although we have landing, this thing can't land, and we also couldn't bring it back because it's just a probe. So we have done this, so we get the Mars survey. So we've now reached 1974. Get our money back. We're going to buy one more Saturn rocket for 20. So we now have a really lovely spaceship. Which we're going to launch. So first we're going to go into suborbital flight, burning one Saturn rocket. Then we're going to go into Earth orbit, burning another Saturn rocket. And then we're going to go into the inner planets transfer. And that's going to cost a Soyuz and an Atlas. Where do I have these? Soyuz to overcome a 3, it would carry 17. Actually, I don't need a Soyuz for this. I just need an Atlas rocket to overcome this. Oh yes, I do, because they have 7. Yeah, so I have a Soyuz. What do I need the Atlas rocket for then? Anyway, so we have enough thrust. You know, this is actually not so easy. So we are now in the inner planets transfer. Oh yeah, we actually spend 1 year on this, so we're not quite there yet. It's the end of the year 1975. This comes off, and we make the man in space. Oh, but we can't come back. Was that what we had the Atlas for? To actually come down again. Did I forget about him coming back? Because that would be a 3. No, that wouldn't be enough because it... Oh yes, it is enough actually. I think that's why I got the Atlas. Because now we have a 3 and it needs to overcome a 3, then it's like this. And then this one is for free and this one is for free. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I made serious calculation errors here. But that was our first foray into space. And I like it. I really, really do. I think this is a great game. I remarked that what I liked about it was its simplicity or its purity of design. And I think this is the only way I can actually describe the game. And I know that I turn into ash as I say this. And if you get this reference, well done. The design is simply pure. There is no chrome, there is nothing in this game that isn't required. There is nothing that I could say about these rules that isn't required. There is nothing in here where I say it is superfluous. Everything that you need is in the rules. And there's even a beyond the game section which explains a little more about what happened and who the people are. So who is Buzz Aldrin? Neil Armstrong, Valerie Bykovsky. I didn't know about her. She was the longest time in space alone in the USSR for 5 days. Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space and the first in Earth orbit. John Glenn, first American in Earth orbit. Gus Grissom, second American in space, died in a pre-launch fire on board Apollo 1. Valentina Tereshkova, first woman in space. So, really interesting. Components. The component cards are simplified representations of many real components from the space race, some more simplified than others. It is just really, really lovely to see that someone would sit down and just say, you know what, I want to make a game where we model something like space flight or space exploration, and we do it in such a way that the components are simple, but not just serviceable, but nice. And to just, you know, say, okay, we're going to, because there is another game about space exploration. It's called Higher Frontier. And it was written by somebody named Phil Eklund. And you may know him. He made a game that I had, but then never played, and that is the John Company. And I think he may even be responsible for Pax Pamir and Pax Porfiriana, although I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this. And he really, he seems, as far as I can tell, he is someone who used to work in space exploration. I don't know what he was or what he is by profession, but apparently that's what he does for a living. So he's a scientist, and he made this game which deals with a similar topic, but it's a lot more intricate and it's a lot more complex, to the point that when you look it up on Board Game Geek, there are people who say, well, I've got it at home. There's this one guy, and he got a copy, a review copy, and he says he looked at the rule book, and he's not been able to break it out and to do the review because he simply can't get his head around it. And it is really, really complex. It is probably also a lot more realistic, possibly. I'm just saying this now. I'm not saying that this is true because I don't know how the game really works. But it is probably a lot more realistic and less simplified than this one. But it is at its detriment so. Because I think that there is a fine line between how realistic a game can be for somebody who is not being trained for a particular job. So let's say this game was supposed to, or you were going to do a simulation game for people who are supposed to work as astronauts, okay? Then of course what you want is you want to have it as realistic as possible, and really, really, you know, and difficulty is not a topic at all, because it has to be as difficult as the actual task when you undertake it, you know? You cannot make it simpler just so that they have more fun, because this is not about fun. They have to see it warts and all. However, if you are playing a game as a gamer who is not going to work as a space agency person, then the point is you do need to have a certain level of not only abstraction but also of a modicum of removed realism and higher gamification for people to be able to play it and still get some enjoyment out of it. Because if you have a game that is so complex, and of course complex, you know, depends really on your personal point of view, and also maybe on the knowledge that you have of certain things. You know, if somebody, for example, doesn't like maths, this game is probably not for them. Because it is a lot of sitting down and thinking about things and not necessarily doing much. I mean, when you look at the playthrough that you just watched, it was a lot of you guys listening to me trying to do maths in my head and, you know, referring to a chart and actually doing it badly. You know, this isn't necessarily a game for everyone, you know, where you can go, oh yeah, that's super, that's a great game. I believe it is a great game, but it is a game that appeals to me because I like the theory behind it and I like the story that it tells. But I could understand if somebody says, well, this is a terrible game because actually nothing happens. Because a lot of the stuff that happens during gameplay happens in your head. It's more an exercise of the mind, probably, than anything else. But again, if you are the kind of person who enjoys this, then this is a great game. But it still is a game, and I think everyone would appreciate that this isn't necessarily realistic. This is not how space exploration works as a topic. And you will probably not be able to use this in order to train anyone on how to do space exploration or how to become an astronaut. And I think what Mr. Eklund did was he kind of possibly overdid it a little, taking all of his knowledge and then turning it into a game and possibly making the game so complex that people who don't have the same background as he does, being unable to follow the game. And I think this is a big danger. It kind of reminds me of, in my own area, when sometimes developers, software developers, believe that they are the best person to document their software. Believe me, they are not. It's very simple. Usually they can't do it. Because they are too close to their own software. They of course understand what it does, but to explain what it actually does is almost an art form. To explain what software does is really, really complex. And developers are usually not the right people to do it. They try, they usually fail admirably, but fail nonetheless. And that's always problematic because then you have a lot of documentation that has been written. People have wasted their time that they should have maybe spent on doing their development. And you have handbooks and manuals that nobody can read and nobody understands. And everybody goes, what does this mean? And you end up with lots and lots of support calls, which is why we also have the so-called technical writers, who are people who were not hired because of their ability or knowledge in coding, but because of their ability and knowledge in writing English sentences, and very, very good ones too. And that's why an expert isn't necessarily the right person to teach or to explain things. Hence, when people say, oh yeah, somebody is a mathematician, that doesn't make him a good maths teacher. Quite often, actually the opposite, quite often they are not good teachers because they come to the subject from a scientific point of view, which is usually way over the head of the average pupil, you know. That doesn't mean that they don't know about mathematics. You know, they do study maths, but possibly not. It's not important for them to have like all the in-depth details that somebody who's going to work as a pure mathematician needs. But they need other skills in addition to very, very good math skills, but not excellent or even genius math skills. They need didactic skills. They need to know how to teach these things. And that's not easy either. Teaching maths is actually, like any other teacher job, is really difficult. So whoever, I don't know the first thing about the person who created this game, but they managed to get it to a level of abstraction to turn this quite difficult topic into a game that is enjoyable. And that is something that I find totally fascinating. And I can only recommend this game. And for those of you who say, yeah, but it's not available, it is available in America. And you can order it, and they will ship it they shipped it to Ireland. And this one is, of course, a copy that I got from Board Game Geek, but I also bought the actual normal original game from the supplier directly, from the producer, I should say, directly. And it arrived pretty much at the same time as this arrived. But of course I'm not going to use it because I've got this copy, and I'm not going to open the copy that I have from the United States, because why would I? So I have 2 copies of the game. Yes, this is my confession for the day. I am a gaming addict and I do collect things, and this one is worth collecting. So I am going to go back to space, and I'm going to use the rules for solo game, which tell you exactly how to put your missions together, because we played in easy mode, but they actually have a list of things that you should do, what kind of missions you should choose to play solo. So that's going to happen as well, probably tomorrow. And until such time as we meet again, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you also enjoyed the rambling thoughts at the end, and I also hope you didn't mind too much the fact that a lot of the time it was really just watching me trying to make calculations and possibly getting things wrong. So have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.